Hey guys, this is Dana here. We are just going to give it another minute or so. Maybe a few more stragglers going to come on board here, so we'll begin in just a couple minutes. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and begin. Most of you all know me, but I'll introduce myself again. I'm Dana Pellick with Upstream Benefits, and I just wanted to thank everyone for taking some time out of your Tuesday afternoon to join us this afternoon. And I hope you all enjoyed last month's webinar for those who were able to attend. So today's focus for today's webinar will be mostly on recruitment and retaining employees. I've heard from a lot of employers over the last, maybe within the last year, I'd say heavily in the last 6 to 8 months, that one of the hardest and most challenging things that y'all are experiencing is employee retention. More so in the past year than it's been in, even the 2020, 2021 years. So we hope this webinar sheds some new insight on how to do just that. So Travis is going to be our expert host speaker today, and he's been with us for quite some time now, and his main focus here at Upstream is leadership development. He is certified by the John Maxwell Leadership Team and is also certified as a DISC personality consultant, which he'll touch base on a little bit today. We here at Upstream have been going through maybe about twice a month for the last few years, leadership and development powwows and meetings. And not only has it made us all stronger in our career paths, but also in our personal lives too. It's been wonderful. But enough about blowing up Travis's head. I'm going to pass it over to the expert. So Travis, you could go ahead and take it away, buddy.
Well, thank you very much, Dana. Yeah, I want to make sure I can get my head through the door tomorrow morning. So I appreciate that little bit of an introduction, but thank you guys for taking a little bit of time to be with us this afternoon. As Dana said, my primary focus with Upstream is around leadership and development, and we've really taken an opportunity to lean into the space of retention and really attraction when we're talking about a major need in the small business space. As Dana said, just so you can see a little bit of the credentials, I've been a DISC consultant for quite a few years, joined the John Maxwell team back in 2017 and graduated from the Sam Chan Institute. So I live and breathe leadership and just really enjoy talking about these subjects and helping small businesses grow in these areas that are super critical for us to get better. One of the biggest challenges, as Dana mentioned, is hiring and retaining top talent. And there's a statistic by the Human Resources Society that says that every time you have to hire a new employee, it costs around $4,000. And maybe for some large entities that those numbers are not so shocking, but we know as small business owners that these things are huge when it comes to us trying to be profitable, trying to stay successful, and trying to not have productivity loss in the meantime. In fact, they say as a whole, from a productivity standpoint and from all the different angles, that an average $40,000 a year employee will cost you from 40% to 150% of that salary. So just to put that in perspective a little bit, if you have a $60,000 employee that you lose, generally you could spend up to $12,000 to try to get that new employee. That's recruitment costs, that's training, onboarding, and all those other things that come along with it. And those things that is something we want to avoid at all costs. So the buzzwords of talking about how do we retain that top talent, how do we engage that top talent and keep them on board, and also how do we go out and attract the right people to our team. And today, really what we want to talk about is just two of the tools that we have in our tool belt that we can help you with, help your small business to grow and to be successful. And the first thing we really want to talk about is that retention piece. And that retention piece is very important because, like we said, we want to keep the people who are on our team that are successful and that we're happy with, and we want to keep them engaged and keep them with us for as long as we possibly can. And one of those ways that we have found here at Upstream that helps us retain top talent is really understanding how to get the right people in the boat. You may have heard of Jim Collins talk about this in his book, Good to Great, where he talked about getting the right people in the right seats on the bus. But today we're gonna rephrase it a little bit, and we're going to talk about, are the right people in the boat? You see, when employees are happy, when employees are engaged, it's because they're doing something that fits who they are. When someone is content in what they're doing, they're happy, and they're pursuing something they enjoy, it makes retaining them a lot easier. And one of the tools we use here at Upstream is DISC. Now, for some of you, DISC may be something you're extremely familiar with, so don't turn me off quite yet, because, you know, we do things a lot differently than a lot of people how they use DISC and how DISC has been used in the past. We believe it's a tool that has probably been underutilized for many years, and we can help you use that tool to be able to engage your team and understand how everybody on your team works, and then ultimately help you to be successful. So just a little bit of a background on what DISC is. If you don't know, I'm going to give you kind of a quick 30,000-foot view of what DISC is today. And if you're still wanting to have more of a conversation about this afterwards, I'm going to be available to be able to schedule time with. So in 1920, William Marston was studying at two different universities. And he began to look at the correlations between behavior and what was predictable in certain types of people. Now we see here Carl Jung, he was the guy who created Myers-Briggs, and Dr. William Marston went on to create DISC. What we use is something called the Maxwell DISC. This is an instrument that not only just gauges personality, but it also gauges your leadership styles and also your communication styles, which is a huge piece of our growth. With the Maxwell DISC, one of the methods is we have the ability to not only learn about the people on our team, but we also have the ability to learn about ourselves. And as Dana has said, you know, we went through DISC many years ago at this point as a team, and it was pretty remarkable how well it helped us connect with each other. It helped us understand each other. But the reality is, all people are predictable, and we're all predictable in different ways, but we are all predictably different. And when we can identify those patterns, we can understand and expect the behaviors, we can begin to know how we want to address those people and how they want to be treated. Let me give you a quick example. I want you to take a look at these 4 different animal prints. Any idea which one they are? Of course you know who they are. You know, you're wondering, you know, why are you even showing me this, Travis? This is simple. We know this already. You know, this is valuable because you already knew what to expect in the next picture. You knew that, you know, it was going to be a Dalmatian dog, a tiger. You knew those things were coming because there was a pattern. And people have that same pattern as well. And this is really what DISC is all about. You know, you may be thinking, what does DISC stand for? So let's go through that really quick. You know, the D stands for dominant. These are the people who like to dominate the situation. We all have these kinds of people in our lives. And no matter what's going on, no matter where you're going, they're going to be the one who's kind of in the leadership chair. They're going to be leading the pack. They're going to be the ones making the decisions. The I stands for influencing, and these are the people who are the influencers. These people love to be the center of attention. They love to talk. They love to engage with other people. The S's, and this is the majority of our society today, these are the steady and supportive people. These are the people you want around because they They're loyal, and they really want to support the team. And then you have your C's. Those are your very compliant people. These are the people who want to know every detail. These are the people who read the employee manual from front to back when you bring them onto your team. Now, the D's and the I's, these are your dominant and your influencing people. They have that more outgoing nature. You know, if you were to walk onto an elevator with these people, they're likely to say something to you. If the C's and the S's, these are your compliant and steady people. These are your more reserved people in nature. And honestly, if you were to get on an elevator with them, they're probably the one that's looking at their shoes and begging that you please don't talk to me. They've got that face that just says, I don't want to have a conversation. Now, the I's and the S's you can see are on the right side of the chart here are the people who often focus most on the people. On the other side of this, you have your D's and your C's. These are the people who typically focus on the task first. So we can begin to see the differences between all the different people and how this all comes together. We have some type of people who are wired to be more task focused, and we have some people who are more drawn to be people focused. Now, all these things matter because if everybody was task focused but never engaged with the team, then ultimately we know that would cause problems. But also, if everybody's always just focused on the people but never the task, we know that drives problems as well. Excuse me. So let's talk about DISC, and I want to talk about it really quickly through a historic event. And I love this historic event, this painting we're going to look at, because what it does is it really helps us paint a quick picture in these few minutes I have with you today to help you kind of dive into what DISC is. So this picture is a painting the painting of December 25th, 1776. That guy standing up in the front of the boat is George Washington. You know, he decided to cross the Delaware to attack the British forces, and eventually, you know, he became our first United States president. But before all that happened, he had to lead his troops in the battle. And the reason I really like this painting is because it illustrates to me the different people on the team. In his case, he had to get the right people on the boat as well by literally getting the people on the boat. So let me talk a little bit about the four styles in light of the situation that you're seeing in front of you. And I want you to think about this from the same view of the current team you're leading. As small business owners and as leaders and as HR directors, you know, you are responsible for a small team, large team, no matter what the scale is. You have a boat of people that you are attempting to lead. And there's really one thing I really want you to focus in on is the gifts and the value that each person, each type of personality brings to the team. But when you put the right people in the boat and you put them in the right place, that is when you allow your people to shine. And guess what? When your people shine, your people stay. And put a little disclaimer in there really quick. You know, I've always when I consult with businesses, I always tell them when you're worried about retaining employees, let's just get the easy stuff out of the way first. You need to be paying your people market value. You absolutely must be paying your people market value if you want them to feel valued. But beyond that, beyond making sure the benefits are there, the pay is where it's supposed to be, how we engage our employees is the most important thing we can do to retaining our top talent. And understanding how we put them in the right place where their strengths are being used and they're able to shine is going to be how we retain them. So the D personality, the D wiring. These are your people who are your visionary thinkers. They're genuinely motivated to win. We see this in sports. There's those people who they're driven to win at all cost. Think of the Michael Jordan. Think of the LeBron James style of individual. These are your D-wired people. They're confident. They're bold. They're not afraid of meeting the challenge. You know, these are the people you want on your team if you need somebody who's going to be bold and be driving and looking for results no matter what the cost. You know, they're not afraid of those challenges, so you want them on the team. So Who's the D in this situation? It's definitely it's the guy right in the front, right? There's the guy standing at the front of the boat. He's focused on what the task is. He's focused on getting across the river so he can begin and make his decisions. I'm going to lead you across, but I also want to note, this guy back here, he's riding his horse apparently, but he's also on a boat. So I'm going to assume that he's a high D because he's also stubborn, and for some reason he thinks, well, once I cross the river, I'm gonna just be able to ride off on the other side. But I'm pretty sure he probably drowned before he made it across. So that's probably why we don't hear about him in history. So but we think about this from that perspective. That these are the de-wired people in the portrait. These are the people who are the leaders. These are the people who are the visionaries, the thinkers in the group. Now, next is our I's. These are our charismatic people. Now, we all have those people on our team. The influencer. They would like to talk. Every 30 minutes they have to have a couple of minutes of social interaction, or they kind of go crazy. They're often your charismatic people. These are the people who want to be seen. They believe that their value is in building relationships. And they're not afraid of it. They aren't afraid of a challenge, but they are afraid of being criticized and left out. But oftentimes these are the people who will say, I'll do it, I'll try. We need these people on our team because they keep us engaged. They keep things light. And oftentimes these are your best sales staff are people who are high I. So who are our high I's in the group? If we want to look for the I-wired soldiers on the boat, and George Washington is the D. Who is the guy standing up right behind him that are also standing up? There's no reason for these guys to be standing up, but yet they are. They're standing and waving a flag, which is actually a very dangerous job if you think about it. But once again, the I has great optimism. They want to be seen. They want to be valued. They want to be written into the history books because that social need is what drives them forward. They believe everything's going to work out for the good because they're driven by that optimism. The S is the individual who's very inclusive, supportive. They really care about the team as a whole. They love peace, and they don't. But here's the thing: on the other side of it, they don't like change. And just a little side note: about 70% of our population are S's. So when you wonder why change is always received so negatively, well, there you go. There's your reason. So your S-wired individuals, they love to move things forward. They love to be in that supportive role, and these are your people who are actually doing the work. Your high D's and your I's. You got your sales guy, you have your leader, but now you have your S's. These are your people who are actually out there getting things done. And the whole story, this whole painting doesn't happen without the S's. So if you're an S, thank you. These are the people who are willing to lead by example. They're saying, whatever it takes, we'll grab an oar, we'll start rowing, we're going to get things done. And without those people on the team, this doesn't happen. This picture doesn't exist. They don't cross the river. And finally, your C's. These are your analytical people. We have a couple C's on our team, and we love them because with the kind of work that we do, it's so focused on the details and getting everything right. You want those analytical thinkers. You want the people who are precise. They want to plan everything out, and they're going to make sure it's good. And they're well researched. They're disciplined, and they're skilled executors. But here on the other side of it, the negative is they don't like surprises. They don't like when things change at the last minute. So I hope at this point you're starting to see some of that value of understanding how your people are wired on your team. And you're probably already thinking, probably how I need to communicate with these people are different, and you would be right. And that is the value of being able to bring these things forward. Your C's are going to be your people who bring the plan forward. Likely they were the people who were navigating across that river. If you notice, one of them is steering the boat and the other one is communicating the directions. They couldn't see. The steerer couldn't see what's going on in the front. So these are your people who plan and create the workaround opportunities. So as you can see, we need each and every one of these people to move forward. And their role, and there's a role for each person on your team, and there's a place where their strengths and their value is brought forward, and that is where they're going to find that joy and that happiness in coming to work. No one wants to work in an environment where they feel like they're not working out of their strengths, because that's very uncomfortable. No one wants to work in an environment where they're not being engaged in a way that they're wired to be engaged in. You're going to have people on your team that may not need a daily touch of positive encouragement, but you have other people in your team that need that positive encouragement each and every day. And if we don't do it, then they're falling behind. They're disengaging. So you may ask me at this moment, well, which personality is the best? Is it a D? Is it an I, S, and a C? And I will tell you very briefly here that we need all of them. We've seen presidents. We've seen CEOs. We've seen great business leaders with each of these different types of personalities. Each of them has their strengths and their weaknesses. So I would say there's not necessarily one that is better than the other. But the reality is, if we remove one of these from the boat, if we remove one of these personalities from the boat, we remove George Washington, we remove the D, maybe the C is very happy because now they can just navigate across the river. But what happens when they get across to the other side? The plan may be made, but there's no one there to lead the attack. Who's going to lead you into battle? So we need the D. You may say we don't need the I's. They talk too much. We may be safer if there is no flag bearer showing the enemy where the boat is in the middle of the river, right? But who's going to encourage the rest of the people on the boat? Who's going to make the boat ride enjoyable? It's the I that makes the boat ride enjoyable. Anybody been in a car ride with people who just don't have any? They're not a major talker. You can sit for hours without talking. It makes it kind of boring. You want that social interaction in those moments. You remove the S from the team, guess what? You lose your forward momentum. You don't have no momentum moving forward. We have a boat full of excellent vision. We have high hopes, but we have no way to execute the plan. We need the S's to move things forward. We need those people. And finally, without the C's, the boat would keep moving, but the question would be then, are we moving in the right direction? Who knows? They would just be rowing and rowing and rowing, and who knows where we would end up. And that is the value of the C who brings that strategic plan based on facts, brings that forward. So that's why we need everybody in the boat. That's why we need to know if our people are in their right role, so that we can give them an ability to be successful, but also so we can have the best performance for the organization. When people are fulfilled, when people feel they're working in their area of their strengths, pair that with the benefits and a fair pay structure, people were able to retain our top talent. You're talking about the millennials and the Gen Z. They care a lot about what they're doing. They care a lot about working in areas that they feel like they can make a difference. And those things really begin with us as the employers and as the leaders, understanding who they are as a whole. And we can't do that without taking the time to go through some of these types of things, like DISC as an assessment. It even works in meetings. If you need someone to be short and productive, you have that person who's like, listen to my plan. You have that high D who's just saying, here's the plan, let's go. If you need someone to be fun and inspirational, you have the I, hey, listen to my ideas. If you need someone to be detailed and informative, you have your C. They're saying, listen to the facts. And if you need someone to be practical and supportive, your S, you say, listen to each other. So it's all about getting the right people in the boat. So like I said, we use the Maxwell DISC report as part of that process of helping companies make sure they get the right people in the right seats so that their employees are having a great experience at work as well. This is a 30-page document that provides detailed overviews of behavioral styles, communication tendencies, and the ideal environment where they bring their best work forward. I mean, we're focused on giving you as much information on the people on your team so that you can create an environment that helps them be successful. Among many of the other characteristics, it maps out the most effective ways to communicate with the individual working within your team. In fact, during our training, because we also do workshops around these assessments. During some of my training, we actually go through each person and how they are wired and how each person on the team can better communicate with each person on the team based on how they are wired. This is how you reduce that drama and you elevate your ability to collaborate with other people on the team. It highlights the motivational characteristics of what matters to that person on the team. And that is what brings an immense amount of value to each individual person. And it's important to know what those things are. We also have something, and this is my favorite page in the document because I think it's probably the thing that brings the most value from my perspective, is something called the Power Disc page. It highlights the individual strengths and influence in people and outcomes. It is incredibly helpful as you look to put people in different roles. If you're looking to put someone into a leadership role for the first time, understanding whether they have the natural gift of directing or of building influence or in detailing or all these different things that we would go through during the Power Disc, but knowing who your players are and connecting them with them on an individual level of knowing where their strengths are is where we're going to be able to help you engage your team on a deeper level. So leaders, I want you to just think about how great that opportunity could be for you to be able to engage your team on a higher level when it comes to using DISC. Like I said, we have the opportunity to be able to set up a webinar or a workshop style program for you and your team. This has had everything I've ever done. Some of the most fulfilling work I have done has been sitting with teams and helping them be able to just really break down barriers that have been up sometimes for years with team members, because now they are simply beginning to understand why people are the way they are. They understand why people are wired the way they are. And suddenly things that once were a struggle are now an immense, they're gone. Because you understand that this is not me taking a cheap shot at you. This is not me trying to hurt you. This is just how I'm wired to respond to these things, and we can begin to change how we do things. So that's really the retention piece that we are able to bring to the table. And as I mentioned, moving along here, because we only have a few more minutes with you guys, and as I mentioned, there's really two tools that I want to bring forward. In the tool bag, we have a lot of different things we can bring. So if this is something that's even relatively, interesting you and you're feeling like it's something that could be of value, this is something that we could definitely take offline into another conversation where we can begin to fulfill and to try to see what is best for you. So now I want to move more towards the attraction piece to the puzzle. And it's really about understanding, am I hiring the right person? One of the challenges that we have seen as we have begun to, as we have worked with multiple companies in their recruiting space, one of the things Upstream has begun to bring, one of the things that we are now doing is we have started helping small companies, small businesses recruit. From just helping write job postings and helping to kind of put a strategy together all the way to running the whole process for you and delivering you the top 3 or 4 candidates. So that is something that as we have found that is an immense value to a lot of small companies because they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the staff to be able to do those things. So the next piece we want to really talk about is something I call interviewing with impact. And interviewing with impact is really talking about something we call the benchmark report. You know, one of the things we realized very early on is that a lot of teams, a lot of small businesses don't really know how to interview people correctly. It's a struggle. It's something that's a bit of a challenge for companies because it's oftentimes something that you don't do too often. And in a competitive job market, when things are very challenging, you know, 83% of talent say a negative experience can change their mind about a role or a company. So with that in mind, the experience that a potential hire has with you in the very beginning is critical. And too often we don't emphasize enough effort and time into that recruiting process and that interview process. And too often we don't really know what we're looking for when it comes time to actually hire that next employee. You know, John Maxwell says a sign of a great team leader is proper placement of the people. So we need to know what we're looking for. We need to know what we're trying to grow towards. And in Upstream, we really have coined 3 C's of talent acquisition. There's 3 areas that we really look at that we believe will help you build a strong team in your organization. And the first one is competence. The first C is competence. Do they have competencies required to do the job? If not 100%, we need to understand what percent of the competencies do they have and can they develop the rest without disrupting the success and the role you are considering them for. The reality is a lot of times we have a hard time deciding on do they have the competencies, but can we bridge that gap rapidly or will it take a significant amount of time? The second C is character. Is their walk aligned with their talk? For example, in one portion of the interview, they tell you how important clients are, and in another portion of the interview or a subsequent interview, do they share stories that illustrate otherwise? Are they in full alignment with what you're trying to accomplish? You know, character is a huge piece to the puzzle in being able to find people that you can engage with, and people that you feel like you can work with, and you want them to be long-term. And if character, we hire for competency, but we oftentimes we're firing and we're letting people go because of lack of character. So if we could solve that problem on the front end, and we can begin to recognize if there's issues on the front end, that will help us immensely. And the third C is culture. Culture is everything. You know, it's something that I think is a buzzword that maybe is thrown around too much, but it's still a critical piece to our success. Is can this person thrive in the culture that we have, that we've created? And would this person add to our values? Would they add to helping us reach our goals? Would their contributions be able to be? Would their contributions to the team add value to the culture that we're trying to create? Would we be able to add value to the culture and the goals that they're trying to reach? These are all things that we don't really talk about too much in the interview process because for most of us, we don't interview enough to even really know if we're doing it right. So these are types of things. So with the 3 C's that we really focus in on in this report is competency, character, and culture. Do you fit in those 3 areas? So here's a typical scenario that oftentimes happens, and I've been guilty of this, and I fell into this trap in my career. I spent 11 years in the aviation industry, and 9 of those years were in senior leadership positions. I mean, so someone has just started a business, or someone has just got promoted to a supervisor or manager position, and they've gotten promoted because they're intelligent, they work hard, they collaborate well with the team. And they're just a great performer, but now they've been thrust into this new position. Maybe you're a business owner who's trying to hire an employee for the very first time, or maybe you've had a team of 4 or 5 and you've had the same 4 or 5 people for years, and now you're having to go out there and find that next employee, and this is something you haven't done. And too often what happens is when it comes time to fill those positions, they are asked to interview a potential client or a potential candidate, excuse me, and the only interview experience they've ever had is what they've actually gone through themselves. And to be honest with you, a lot of the interviewing I've gone through myself was not that good. So the truth is, without any formal training, they look to their own interviews, their own previous interviews as the model. And for most of us, we would admit that they probably weren't that great. Then we have to find a way to create a model that is worth replicating, that is worth using. If not, how are we going to learn how to create impactful interviews? And too often what happens is we spend all of our time focusing on the operational and trying to produce the widget or produce the product, and we don't really have the time to go into these areas. And this is really where this benchmark report that we can provide you with really begins to help. So I want to help you really quick by just giving you something that's tangible that you can walk away with today, and then we're going to wrap up and we're going to try to send you on your way right at the top of the hour, or maybe a little earlier. So in advance of the interview, so let's talk about this for a minute. In the advance of the interview, the first step is really interview prep. It is important we know the job responsibilities and the benchmarks that have shown success in the past. We want to know what we're looking for. Too often I'll get on the phone or get on a Zoom call with a client, and they're saying, hey, I need to hire this position, but they really don't know what that role is going to completely entail. They don't know what success looks like. They can't say, hey, we have someone on our team who fulfills this role perfectly, and if I could only reproduce this employee, then we would be successful. And towards the end of today, I'm going to tell you about an opportunity to utilize a simple program. Like I said, it's called to create what we call a benchmark. But, for this specific question, for each candidate, we really want to understand, how close are they to the benchmark? So what we would do, and I'm just going to break this down real quick, is we would help you connect by allowing you to choose 1 to 3 people on your team that you feel fit that benchmark, that fit who you were looking for on the team. They'll take about a 30-minute assessment, and from that assessment, we will gain a ton of data that we'll be able to use to then, when we bring people onto the team, when you're looking to bring new people onto the team, you can then give them that same report, and then you will be given a report that allows you to see the comparisons and the contrast of the gaps that are currently between your benchmark and what you're looking for in your employee, and where does that employee fall. Now, here's the awesome part. It also helps you it also gives you questions that helps you fill in those gaps. So when you're struggling to ask the right questions and you don't know really what you should be looking for, this report actually helps you by giving you the questions you should be asking to make sure you can fill in those gaps where you're unsure of whether that person fits the role or not. So that first step in the interview process is the prep time. The second one is, next we want to look into we want to start looking at the skills. We want to start looking at we want to look into the interview prep. One of the biggest mistakes we make as interviewers is we want to wing it. I mean, we just, I don't really know what the plan is. We really don't know what steps we're going to take, but we don't plan it. But we want to make sure we have our questions in advance, and we're prepared in advance. Preparedness makes the interview better. I mean, too often we're going into these things last minute with no plan. Despite everything, you need to make sure that you've scheduled the time on the day of the interview. Too often, one of the biggest problems we have is we don't schedule enough time to actually take the time to do a full interview. For me, for example, I can remember one of the first jobs I interviewed as a young guy, maybe 16, 17 years old. I sat for over an hour waiting for the person to come interview me. Now think about that. That's a major, I mean, that's the worst impression you can make on a team, a new potential team member. So we want to make sure we've given this plenty of time, that we've stretched, that we've got all these things. We got all the time to be able to do everything we want. We want to make that positive first impression on the team and the potential team member. The next mistake interviewers make, every one of us is guilty of this if we're honest, is we're too focused on what we want to say next and preparing what we want to say instead of really wanting to listen to what the candidate is saying. We need to make the new potential hires feel welcome, and we need to do that by letting them know, hey, we've taken the time out of our schedule to be present, and we are completely focused on what is happening in those moments. And we do that by listening carefully. Maintain notes, but don't get lost in the notes. Make sure that you're engaging with the person. Don't lose a lot. Keep eye contact as much as you can. But you don't want to, spend the whole time basically just scribbling notes and not engaging with them. But make sure you're taking down the notes that you need to. And then also the next thing is allow the candidate time to ask questions. Too often we feel rushed. Sometimes we feel like we're hurrying them off the phone or hurrying them out of the room. Make sure that they are given ample opportunity to ask questions, because this helps you gain clarity. Too often when I interview someone and they don't have questions, that opens up more questions for me than someone who is willing to ask questions. And this is an opportunity that will reveal even more information to you about that person. So we don't want to rush this. You can see the key word here is we don't want to rush it. As you enter in the interview process, make sure your attitude about the candidate is positive. Too often I sit with people and have conversations with business owners that they feel like the whole world is ending. Every employee that I've ever tried to hire is horrible. The next one's going to be horrible too. Try to go into these interviews with a positive attitude. When we enter with a dialogue we want to consider the experience that the interviewee is having. If you come in with a positive attitude, that reflects on you well. If you come in with a negative attitude, believe it or not, that oftentimes reflects on you negatively. That means being connected to the interviewer throughout. It could mean providing them with a tour of the company, introducing them to potential, the leaders on the team, giving them those opportunities to really lean in and learn more about the company, and letting them know that you're there not just to provide them a job, but also you want them to have a career with you. So we want to make sure we're taking the time to have a positive attitude. After the interview's over, and I hate that I have to say this, but for the HR people who are on the call or on this today, you probably have a systematic process for following up. But too often, small businesses do not have a systematic opportunity to follow up. One of the most important things we can do is make sure that we are being respectful to the people that don't get selected, but also making sure that, we may interview someone who doesn't fit the current need, but may be a fit for a future position. So we want to make sure we keep everybody, we want people to have a positive view of our company moving forward. And so we do that by making sure that we follow up respectfully with each person. There's nothing worse than applying for a job, having an interview, and then not being followed up with some sort of communication. All right, so one of the stumbling blocks for many organizations is being able to clearly identify the competencies required to be in your role successfully. That is where our benchmark report and our interview program provides you and your organization an easy and effective way to identify the key traits required for success. And honestly, this is a game changer. So I want to share with you a little bit about this, and then we're going to wrap up for today. So there's 3 really simple steps to the methods of the benchmark report. First, we establish a benchmark for the role you are hiring for. This is accomplished, like I said, by you taking 1 to 3 people on your team who are already successful in the role. They're already very, competent, and what we do is we have them complete the report and the questionnaire like I said, that will take 20 to 30 minutes. The new candidates who are being considered will complete the questionnaire online. Once each candidate completes the questionnaire, an interview impact report is created and is sent to the interviewer. So you would give this report before you actually interviewed the candidate. So that if this is a serious candidate who's maybe been screened and they're qualified and they start fitting boxes, then this is when you would do this. This report has questions that are specific to the candidates versus the benchmark to help the interviewer see if they are close and if there are any gaps between the candidates and the established benchmark. It's just that simple. And in fact, I can explore whether it's a good fit for you. So it's really that easy. So I don't want to really dig into it much deeper than that. But if this is something that you say, you know what, my organization could add value, there could be value from this. Maybe this is something you're unsure of whether it would be a good fit. I would love to have a conversation with you. We're talking about whether it is DISC or whether we're talking about the benchmark report. But these things are critical to our success in being able to help you represent your company well. So, like I said, next steps would be reaching out to me to schedule some time, and you can reach me at the email below, or you can give us a call at the office and ask for me, and we can set up some time to connect. Dana, do you got any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, not really. I think you said it very well, Travis. I think one of the fun things, the DISC personality assessment stuff can be very complex. There's a lot, like I think you said there's like 40-some pages in that document. And, you know, the first time we did it, we went pretty deep into it, but I love it because it's so versatile that we've played games with it in the past because it is so complex and there's a lot to learn, not only about who you are, but also your peers and your friends and family. So Travis can make it fun too by playing some games, which is it's just a different technique of learning, right? But no, I think that pretty much wraps it up. And if somebody doesn't catch your number or your email here, you guys could always call our office or email us, and we could certainly get you in touch with Travis as well.
Awesome. Well, we thank you guys for joining us today on the webinar, and I'm sure we'll be sending out another link for next month's webinar as it gets closer, and just be on the lookout for that, and look out for the recording. It should be coming out tomorrow if you want to go back and review any of this. But if you think this is a good fit for you, or you're unsure, would love to have a conversation with you and see how we can help you out.
Thanks so much, guys, for taking the time out of your Tuesday, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Take care, guys.
Bye.